All right, all right. Hello, everybody. This is Darren. We are here on Monday night. We're going to talk a little bit about the gospel reading for this week in the lectionary, Matthew chapter 13. Let me clarify some things for myself. Yeah, Matthew chapter 13, 31 through 33, 44 through 52. A few different parables, short little parables of the kingdom. So let me jump over here and share the screen so you can see the text for this week. Forgive me for a little Presbyterian promotion there. I just happened to find it on this site today rather than the other one. But here we go. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which someone found and hid, and then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea and caught fish of every kind. When it was full, they drew it ashore, sat down, and put the good into baskets, but threw out the bad. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come out and separate the evil from the righteous, and throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all this? They answered. Yes. He said to them, therefore every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like the master of a household, who brings out of his treasure what is new and what is old. All right. Last one kind of takes us back to the time before, but all right. So what I'll start saying about this, I have a couple quotes that I'd like to read a little later, but maybe when Mark gets on, if I think Mark's coming on, and maybe Marcy as well. But I guess as I was reading these this week, it's certainly easy to understand in Jesus' time how the community of Matthew especially would have felt like they were the small seed, seemingly insignificant in the Roman Empire, and honestly probably seemingly insignificant for the direction that Judaism was going overall after the destruction of the temple. So these parables of the yeast working through the dough, or the seed growing into the tree, or the pearl, or the treasure, kind of all give that sense of hope that even though things seem small and insignificant now, there's something there that's worth giving up your whole life for, or trading everything for. And so I guess my question for us today, well, there's 2 questions really. One is, as the church, as the recognized Christian community, in the broadest sense, in some ways, particularly in the Western world, we saw over time some kind of growing into something bigger, something dominant, you might say. All right, I'll just let Mark in here while I'm even mid sentence. Oh, and Marcy's here too. Good. Save me from my silliness. Hey, y'all.
Oh, hey, everybody. Everybody's staying cool. The big heat's coming.
Working on it. You know?
Man.
Yeah, the air conditioning was out in my office today. It was like
What?
It's like 80 something in there. So
what? I hope you get it fixed.
Yeah, I think they got it fixed right before I left. So
okay.
But still.
So do you have the heat dome also? Is it spreading or?
I don't know. It's supposed to be warm this week for us, but I don't know if it's as bad as anywhere else, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's spreading north a little bit. I don't see any relief from this thing in sight here.
Right. Yeah.
December.
Right.
December.
Yeah.
Yeah, the winter time might help us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, just for you all getting on here, let me see. Okay, sorry. Let me get. I kind of had read through the text, and I just kind of laid some background to say, you know, that clearly for Matthew's community, you know, it's clear how you can see how they would appreciate this, you know, understanding of seeming insignificant, you know,
right.
in the world, and you know, and also that they, you know, the affirmation that whatever they, you know, the community that they're forming is worth giving up all your possessions, and, you know, that's reassuring and reaffirming for them. And I guess where I was kind of heading, and maybe we can avoid this for now, but I didn't go to something. But where I was heading, you know, where I was heading, kind of thinking about today is, you know, so we've seen in the Western world, at least over the last 2,000 years, what some would claim was the fruition of this text, right? We've seen the Christian community grow and become a dominant, you know, force or whatever.
Yeah.
And some would even claim, you know, that, you know, basically all of this has come true in some way, shape, or form. Right. I mean, you know, there's, you know, and that anyone who seeks to plant any other seed should be, you know, eliminated or whatever, you know. But of course, I think there's other communities that are still hearing this, you know, as a hopeful thing, that their particular understanding of the kingdom is insignificant in world terms, but they know that it's the true and correct, you know, that's the right thing, you know.
I just wonder. I mean, I agree with you. I think that, you know, certainly the community of Matthew is wrestling with the fact that they are the minority, and but they want to feel comfortable in the fact that they are a minority, and that they want to be inclusive. I struggle to think that they would have this vision of. I don't think they would be comfortable with the idea of hierarchy, or in terms of dominance. I think they would struggle with that. And I think that, I hear you on that. I think that such a reading of that as Christianity becoming dominant is not it's not what I don't think what Jesus intended.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe I think maybe, you know, Carter kind of laid this out at the beginning of in his introduction to the book, you know, that there's a danger in this kingdom language, you know, that if you use the same language as the empire, it's always a risky thing.
Yeah.
Because people
Yeah.
too easily, because I mean, there's also communities right now that seek to be the dominant force and feel like they themselves are in the mustard seed position. I mean, there's a large portion of the religious right that feel, that's their narrative about themselves.
Right.
They are this, small persecuted minority.
Yeah. Yeah.
That. So I mean, it seems to be always a danger to figure out the right language to use that and the right way of reading these things. Because I mean, you could ask the question of, what I mean. This is the question of Augustine, right? I mean, like at the time of the empire falling, the Roman Empire falling, but then Christianity becoming the empire's religion. Like what do you consider that a good thing? I mean, is that supposed to be? Is that a good thing? Is that helping to spread? The branches, or I think you're always in that kind of dangerous position in some way.
I think as more and more I read Matt Carter, the more and more I like him. That it is that we have the luxury of reading these texts not in this social, political, economic situation that the original writers were, of being dominated, marginalized, even oppressed by a very oppressive regime such as Rome.
Right.
I mean, unless you were African American, 100 years ago, then you felt that the sting of racism. But for the most part, we're fortunate, and thank God for Carter to remind us of what the position these folks were in, and I think we have to see it from that perspective.
Right.
It's critical. We read it from that perspective.
Mm.
So I guess like what who was it he would say we're third readers. We definitely are third readers of these texts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that today because I in these gospel readings, especially like many of them, the commentary that I have from the little church in Nicaragua, around the time of the Sandinista Revolution, I'm convinced more and more that those communities are the ones who have the close, they come the closest to matching the reading of that time, of being almost like you could transport the reading to them more, easier, because they are, they're under the boot of domination from the U.S. empire. They're a small, insignificant group,
right?
And they're trying to bring some kind of new kingdom, new, something into being,
Right.
And I think, it's hard if you're not, it's hard from our position to really get into that space,
It is. And I think one of the dangers of today is that I don't think the community of Matthew, the community of Mark, or any of those first century communities would say that our understanding of God of what is right and you're wrong. Whereas today, that seems to be, especially in evangelicalism, is that, well, I'm right, Marcy, you're wrong. Your theology is wrong. Your theology is
right.
Right. We're right. We have a box on who God is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't see the community of Matthew feeling that way.
Well, I mean, obviously, like with the internal conflicts they had with the Jewish folks, there was not a question, right? I mean, they shared the same God.
Right.
I mean, that was an easy thing. And then with the Roman world, it was clear, there was such a clear distinction between the gods and their God.
Right.
You know, that there wasn't much need for debate necessarily.
Yeah.
In many ways. But I do think that I think people arguing over the understanding of God is probably the right. It's probably the right place to begin, at least, because that's the problem, right? I mean, if you're going to have a kingdom of God, everybody has an understanding of what a kingdom looks like.
Right.
But if it's the kingdom of God, then it's going to look like God. So you have to figure out what your God looks like. What your kingdom's going to look like. And I think that's where the problem comes in.
Right. That's clearly where the disconnect is for many people.
Yeah. And it's understandable if you're not a Christian in some ways, because you're kind of just working off, but if you're claiming that you think the ultimate revelation of who God is Jesus, then it should get pretty specific,
right,
of what things are supposed to look like.
You think?
You would hope.
I don't know. But clearly we're challenged on all fronts with that idea. So
I guess the issue is, you said, Darren, what you're alluding to is that what is your God and what does your Jesus look like?
Right.
Because the Jesus of Matthew is not manipulative. The Jesus of Matthew doesn't force himself on folk. The Jesus of Matthew, why might thing do that? My computer did something funny. Y'all go ahead. Let me. Come on. Okay. I don't want my computer.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. It timed me out. I don't know why I did that.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Enough about your Jesus. I'm cutting you off.
Yeah. So but the Jesus of Matthew doesn't do that. Doesn't force himself on folk. It's invitational. It's inclusive. It's not. It's not manipulative. It's not manipulative. God doesn't have to manipulate folk to call them into community. Yeah.
It's interesting. I would say this that the one about the treasure in the field. I don't know. For some reason, I've always read that one as if it was already the person's field, but it's clearly not. I don't know why.
I
don't know why I always read it that way. It's interesting.
And Carter seems to indicate that person was not a person of wealth.
Right.
That person, it was not a person of wealth. I think he almost called him like a day laborer, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And that this day laborer sees the value, finds this treasure and says, "Wow!" I guess he sees the potential, which all these parables talk about the possibility and the not yet of what's coming.
Right.
And so he sees the potential. So he risks all that he has.
Right.
To purchase that field. Because he wonders what else could be there and what are the possibilities of this field.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too that he also I'm reading something into this too, so but what are you going to do when they only give you a line,
I know.
But I mean, obviously he doesn't trust the current owner of the field
Hmm.
with the treasure. You know,
Wow.
because
he feels that the owner, he didn't see the value
right, or he doesn't know it's there.
there. He doesn't know it's
You
there.
know,
He doesn't see the value
either he
or
doesn't know
both.
it's there, he doesn't understand
Both.
the value. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's interesting, because it does involve a little bit of, there's a little bit of, trickiness or
Yeah.
there's a trickster element to this,
Yeah.
because he's not telling him about the treasure when he's going
Yeah.
by the field,
Yeah.
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 But yeah, like you say, it may not seem like a treasure to him anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't see the value.
Right.
And I end up I'm renting that book you recommended by Davies, and I think that's going to help a lot. Because she talks about the beginning of seeing the value of land. I mean, and then certainly this struggling everyday worker sees the value and the potential, and just projecting it out as we look at this crisis we're in, we just don't see the value of the gift that we've been given. And we want to manipulate it and use it and not share it with our fellow man and with our fellow creatures. We just it's just there to be used.
Yeah.
And now we're paying the price. But that's another story for another day.
Well, and it's interesting thinking about that, that what you're alluding to there is that, I mean, in so many ways, any of us who have a care for creation are in the mustard seed kind of position, because, in some ways, like, it's just to the point that for so many people that their opinions, their thoughts, even their actions don't really matter. I mean,
they're throwing.
I mean, well, and even the people who are somewhat, who feel like they can express themselves and they recycle and blah blah blah. I mean, it's still making such an insignificant impact on like the broader, the people who making the decisions, who are just burning through the earth, are not. It's not the everyday person who's making those decisions,
Right.
In fact, you could have millions of people say no, and people would keep on doing what they want to do. And so in some ways it's important to understand this, like, I mean, it's a message of hope in a way to say, like, yes, like, we are this small group of people trying to bring about this understanding, this way of being in the world, like. And yes, it does seem like that no one cares, no one cares, and people would rather, jail us or, I mean,
kill us.
Yeah. But, just like the small seed, there's a possibility there,
There's a spark of the divine. There's the imago Dei in all of us. Right. And I think that, like we're alluding to, the day laborer saw the potential and saw the value, and what this field could become. I guess one of the struggles for today is that we just don't see just the value in people. There's and as we look at this whole climate change thing, just like 30 or 40 years ago, when my issue was the nuclear arms race, the possibility that there's folks that could be sacrificed. The same thing with climate change, because choices are going to have to be made, and there's going to be land that's going to be sacrificed and people that's going to be sacrificed. When you look at the idea of mitigation, who gets mitigated and at what cost?
Right.
And are some communities disposable?
Right.
For example, if you just Now, a friend of mine talks about that in Norfolk. It's about building a seawall. Well, that's okay for Norfolk, but it says sea levels rise. What about Portsmouth?
Right.
What happens to Portsmouth and those
Right.
poor areas of
Of
Canada?
Portsmouth,
There's
yeah.
no,
We're not be able to afford a seawall.
there's not a Navy base there, though, is there?
No,
Oh, well
In
then.
Portsmouth, no.
Yeah, well then.
no.
That's
They
not,
have a hot naval hospital, but the base, yeah, is
Yeah.
firmly in Norfolk, and they'll probably do what they have to do to protect that, but not Portsmouth. I mean, Portsmouth is,
right.
yeah, they're having struggles.
But that's, I mean, and and that's the other, I mean, like, I mean, I think obviously, like, we as people have to take personal responsibility for all of our actions,
Right.
but I think that part of the thing that we have been, I think part of the thing we've been doing for too long is trying to get, like, people, like individuals, to do something that might make a difference, and when in reality, like, we all have to realize who the people are that are actually doing the damage.
Right.
Right.
Who's making those decisions
Yeah.
nonstop to do, like, who are those people, and how do we stop them from doing it?
Right. And one of the things with climate change is that we know the main folks that are at fault are the major economies. And I think I heard a statement the last week that there was some discussion among, I think, in the United Nations on, are there going to be sort of kind of, I guess you would call it, reparations for those countries in which are not contributors to be affected? And the answer was no.
Right.
Okay. So we're just going to let, certain communities that depend on fishing and their lives depend on those ecosystems from the sea just go.
Yeah.
We're not going to support them at all.
Right. Well, I mean, and we know that the number one of the number one polluters in the world is our military.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why do we need the military that we have?
Yeah.
Why do we need this incredible, military that's, it's like the next 7 militaries combined
Right.
Or we can go even smaller than that. You heard what Texas made a decision that as they're facing this record heat, that is not going to enforce or make sure that folks who work outside or contractors
Get a water break.
Yeah.
I mean, so just keep on doing what you're doing. If you fall out, then oh well, that's on you.
And they've also put up those, what is it? Those flotillas. I think they had until today
Rio
to
Grande,
remove them, or they were going to sue. The DOJ was going to sue them
the governor
for putting those things in the water that are.
He said, what's the Texas governor name? He said, no, he's not taking them up.
Yeah, oh yeah. I didn't think he would do it. I just,
take them up.
Yeah, he's not going to do it.
Yeah. So, it is what it is.
So, yeah. So in all this, I mean, especially the mustard seed, I guess we've talked about that. This is still meant to be an encouragement for us, right? Is that what? Yeah. It's just tough, but I mean, the value of the parable is clear, but it just is. Yeah, it's. I think Carter says in another commentary I read that it's, we live in a world where there's a whole lot of bad, a whole lot of bad.
Right.
And he says, yet even though God's reigning presence will not swiftly cancel and eliminate the brutality, we can trust the future to the holy justice of God.
Yeah.
So, and it takes a lot to maintain that trust. I think it does.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot to keep your heart open, to be open to the possibilities of the not yet. And I think that's, that's one of the challenges. Is I think folks are so bombarded that sometimes it's difficult to for folks to keep their hearts open for the possibility of the not yet.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about these parables in highlighting the insignificant is to warn people to not look for the big flashy thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
To say,
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's things that are more powerful. There's things that are already grown and impressive, you know, but they're also destroying everything.
Right.
I mean, like, and I think that obviously, this is a thing that this is a problem in the church and in everywhere, is that we just like we try to take the easy way out and so many other things, like this is the same thing. We choose to embrace kingdoms.
We choose to embrace flashiness. I think Jesus and the community of Matthew were the first communities would be surprised about mega churches.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would be shocked, and no, it's not we were looking for.
Well, I think they would be. I think they would be shocked that so many of our churches are confused about the fact that our nation is not, the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that they would be just blown away by how easily people move between their understanding of what Christian community is to it being, basically your, I don't know, your American neighborhood or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Or really, I guess your family and maybe your extended family at the most.
Yeah.
I mean, when clearly, like, we are the empire of today. Like like we, and there's no way around it, Because I mean, even the governor of Texas is, needs to get rid of the flotillas, but I mean, Biden's immigration policy is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, it's insane. So, like,
It is.
While we quibble about who's the worst, like, they're both terrible.
They're both terrible.
And it's kind of like, and I think especially in the States, it gets really hard because we're so indoctrinated into, like,
electoral politics.
Yeah. Like, okay, well, we've decided that this is the bad people and these must be the good people. And then we stop there. And then it's like, well, but according to the kingdom of God, these both are bad people. Like, they're not getting anywhere close to what we're trying to do in the world. I was listening to someone talking today about trying to convince everybody that, if you were, that you've got to vote for Biden, basically, like that whole, just in case, you've been starting to think about something different, and it's like, okay, fine, you can say whatever you want because you are a secular radio station, dedicated to the Democratic Party. Right. But from a Christian point of view, like, you're not telling me anything that any of these people are doing that's actually a benefit to the communities that these texts were written to.
Yeah.
Written from,
Yeah.
All right. That was my soapbox for the day. Oh.
Yay!
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
I was gonna well, anyway, anyone else? I'll sit I'll sit back for you.
No, you good.
No, it's good. You're
good. You're good. Because
a whole lot of
I guess I think we have just been so brainwashed. Now, maybe that's not the right word. We have just been so inundated by the evangelical reading of these texts. It's like we need to start to rethink some things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the reading of the text; it's the evangelical, like Darren said, it's their whole vision and belief of who God is.
Yeah,
and
we have the box on them, and you don't.
Yeah.
Well, I think about too, like, when you think about these texts, like, when you read these texts, and if you read them even in a public space, and you're in a church, how often do we talk about like what's the material reality that these are trying to, like, that this is trying to like evoke? Like what does it look like on the ground whenever this becomes true? What is, and I think Carter does a really good job of laying out what this would have meant in the tradition from the Old Testament forward for the people reading it, and it would have been a very, there would have been very clear signs that you could see in a community, in the real world, the way that they acted and lived, and I think that we don't, the thing about the evangelical reading, or even the, I don't know, even the kind of spiritualized reading that's been given to these over time, just takes them out of any kind of actual practice, besides just embracing the gospel, or whatever, whatever that might mean, because I think a lot of people read them as more like faith growing in your heart or something like that,
Oh yeah.
Very individual, very individual,
very much so.
Yeah, that type of thing. And again, I'm not saying that that's not important, but that's not the even the main focus of what these texts are really about.
No.
Well, I think it's partly, again, I mean, I think maybe Jennings is right, thinking about how we, I mean, part of it is I think we've been reading these texts for a long time in a, at least for us in the States or in the Western world, have been reading these from a kind of atheist kind of understanding of things, like as if, there's a bunch of non-believers out there, or something. And then what we need, what's going to happen is that belief is going to take hold of all of these non-believers, and that's going to be kind of the end result. That'll be the fruition of everything, And in reality, at that time, when any of these things were written, everybody were believers in some kind of deity somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, and it was so it was more an argument about whose deity is putting the world together in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This little reading that I wanted to do from this gospel in Solentiname again.
Okay.
It's kind of long, but
let's hear it.
Right, let's hear it. Go for it.
So one thing that I want to show this before I do, because this is this is the tree, or the plant that they talk about, the tree that they talk about in this text, the Guasima, and I'm trying to see, they had the fruit somewhere. I'm trying to think of.
Ooh, is that it?
That fruit?
Yeah, and then inside of that is little seeds,
Okay.
So,
wow.
Let's see.
This is Nicaragua, you said?
Yeah, this is Nicaragua. Yeah. Let me see if I can. I'll get up Here's a whole bunch of different images from the Googles.
The Google web.
Yeah. So you can see inside there the tiny little seed, But anyway, so they're talking about this text, and well, so I'll start just a little bit above, because it says Loreno says, and you can say the same about the revolution. At the beginning, nobody notices it. It's little groups, cells, and the guerrilla groups are small, insignificant, poor, and they're often wiped out. But they're going to change society. Can't we apply also to them the parable of the mustard seed? And then Marcelino says, with his calm voice, I don't know about the mustard seed, but I do know about the gusima seed, which is tiny. I'm looking at that gusima tree over there. It's very large, and the birds come into it too.
Mm.
Myself, that's what we are. This little community, a gusima seed. It doesn't seem there's any connection between a thing that's round and tiny, like a pebble, and that great big tree. It doesn't seem either that there's any connection between some poor campesinos and a just and well developed society where there is abundance and everything is shared. And we are the seed of that society. When the tree will develop, we don't know, but we know that we are a seed and not a pebble. I said, so the author, Ernesto Cardenal, I said, the great tree with all its branches and all its leaves is already present in the seed, even though in a hidden form. In the same way, the kingdom of heaven, which is a cosmic kingdom, is already present in us, but in a hidden way. A tree is the product of the evolution of a seed, and in nature, everything is produced by a process of evolution. And it seems to me that with this parable of the seed, Christ is also telling us here that the kingdom of heaven is the product of the same process of evolution that forms stars, plants, animals, people. And it grows in us, impelled by the same forces of nature that impelled the evolution of the whole cosmos, which is to say that the kingdom of heaven is evolution itself. And then Elvis, um, the birds that make their nest in the branches, it seems to me, are humanity now free, people who can go freely everywhere without borders of any kind, and who will feel safe in the universe without any of them ever being in need. And then Teresita says, this parable also teaches us that we must be patient because a tree isn't created in a single day, and all the processes of nature take their time. Now, Olivia, the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of love begins with a tiny bit. When we work on it, the seed grows and grows. I've seen that seed growing here. Blessed be God. And then Olivia continued, the kingdom of heaven is also taking shape in our homes with the growing children that we are shaping. They are growing up, and the kingdom of love is taking shape, which is the kingdom of heaven. It has to take shape in a child, and then it goes on developing. And if the children develop well, they are going to extend that kingdom of love also. Yes, you can notice also how the kingdom of heaven is growing inside the child. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about hope. It's all about belief in the possibility of tomorrow, and that the reality of today, as bad as it may be, is not the all overall and end all. That there is a possibility. I mean, I could think of just I'm still reading Hershey's book. I'm almost done.
The Nat Bishop.
Yeah, and she talks about how the slaves worked 20 hours a day. And I just can imagine them looking at this text and saying, that there is hope, that we made it through today, so we can make it through tomorrow, and that that maybe if one person escapes this plantation place, this cruel life, that another person can do it. So there's always hope. There's always a chance, of something other than this reality that we currently see, So yeah, so it's all about believing in there can be a different reality, and that we are active in hoping in bringing this reality into being.
Yeah,
it's not a passive. I'm hoping.
Passive hope.
It's
an active hope.
Yeah, active.
It's an active hope. Yeah.
Active hope.
Yeah, it's interesting that I think I think maybe in general is that we don't like talk enough, or think enough about, because every word that we say, like has to be defined what it looks like and what it means, because I think you're right. Like there's these communities of hope, like when you were talking about enslaved people, you think about the hush harbors and these little places escape, even for a Sunday, or even for a little bit of time, to gather as community. I mean, obviously the famous kind of literary example is that scene in Beloved, with baby Suggs or whatever. But there's always those communities, right? There's always those people living their life, even for a day or an hour, in a way that is the encapsulation of what could be.
Mhm.
Embracing each other, loving each other, even though like the world outside will do everything to tell them that they shouldn't,
Right.
should allow themselves
Yeah.
to feel that way and to embrace each other, and because they could be ripped apart, at any minute.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
There's always those communities, but at the same time there's the plantation.
I'm moving, y'all keep on talking. I'm moving.
But, at the same time, there's the plantation owners sitting on the porch with their mint juleps, with their
Right.
with their plans and schemes, and
Right.
their maybe we don't call those hopes. Maybe we call them something different, so that we can kind of distinguish between
Between the hopes. Yeah.
between the two things.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to talk a little bit more about I mean, not tonight, but all three of us, but in general, the church, we need to talk about more about eschatology and what that means from a liberation perspective. I think we get lost in eschatology as being this pie in the sky type thing, but that's not what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about yeah, it's coming, but it's happening now. It's not a in the future thing. This is happening right now. I just don't think we talk enough about eschatology.
Right.
And what that means.
Yeah.
Because like we just mentioned, I mean, those folks in the Bush Harbor, those folks.
Bush Harbor,
Just trying to survive those 20 hours. I mean,
right.
that hope, that belief that tomorrow will be a better day. I mean, that was a driving force for them to stay alive, to make it through that day of working out there in the sun with no water, barely no food, no rest.
But learning valuable skills. So there's that.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Woo.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up.
And the fact is, it's a part of a curriculum. It's actually a part of a curriculum.
Yeah. I guess maybe that's why I think, in what you're talking about with eschatology, like I think we should be really clear. I think when we talk about the communities that we're trying to form by looking at what are our aspirations, like what do we hope to see,
Yeah.
Because I think things get clarified pretty quickly, by who's not included in your whatever your aspirations look like, who's left out,
Mm-hmm.
how who's not given a consideration at all. How easily do you think that harms can be looked over and passed over?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of these things. Yeah. And that's why I think it's so hard to. I think that, I mean, like we've said this many, many times. I think that we, as the church, I mean, we have to really start looking outside of ourselves for indications of what the kingdom looks like. Because for most of us, in most communities, we've given up on any. I mean, we've pretty much given up on most like material reality of what we think the kingdom should be, beyond just taking care of ourselves,
And I think that somehow we have to somehow divest ourselves of the culture of Americana as we do that. Because I think that the culture of Americana and most of this vision of the American dream and all that has so contaminated our thought,
Yeah.
and I think we just read these texts in light of that myth, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to do, but we have to start detangling ourselves from that.
Right. I mean, it's interesting that that the Christian faith comes out of the Jewish tradition,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean part of the all right, I'm going to use this word, but part of the benefit of the Jewish tradition is that they, for most of their tradition, were in an oppositional stance toward the power, the power system of the time.
Right.
I mean, yes, many times they tried to emulate it, and try to have their own.
Yeah.
But for one reason or another, they were always put back in a position of, an oppositional position.
Right.
And obviously, I don't think you get the Jesus tradition any other way. Right.
Right.
Right. Comes through that. Yeah.
But
and that's why I think Leonard is always so passionate about reading the Old Testament and the prophets, because we just don't do that enough. We cannot understand Jesus unless we really understand especially the prophetic tradition. And we just don't. I don't think he's right. We don't read it enough. We don't study it enough.
So Darren, are you suggesting that the church today has lost the role that being oppositional? I mean, there's some churches that cozy up to power, right? They seek to be, that's just, yeah.
That's what I was saying. Is that what you're saying earlier about that we need to decouple ourselves from Americana? Because I think that, I like what Darren is saying, that we are so wrapped up in the American dream and the American vision that's where this Christian nationalism comes from. That we need to somehow get that stuff out of our system.
Right. Well, it's interesting though, because like what you're saying, I mean, like probably the people who espouse this oppositional claim for themselves more than anybody else is that group, right? I mean, they take on the role of the persecuted true believer, more than anybody else does. Which is why I think you have to. I mean, I think you have to look at what their aspirations are.
Right.
What do they hope to gain? What do they hope to be? And it's clear that they just seek to have control.
Right.
And power.
Right.
And are happy with and would be happy with a return to, the most dominant and segregated American empire that you could find, and unfortunately, I think on the more kind of left side of things, people have given up on the church, for the most part, given up on the church a long time ago.
As being a prophetic voice.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and in many ways, in many ways, either side is kind of, have abandoned, it's in so many ways any of the kernel that might be there. Now, obviously, the thing about it is that I think for me and my understanding of it, on the left side at least, you can embody the material reality
Right.
without necessarily embracing all of the theology, and I think that that's where things get interesting in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's I was thinking about there's these little pockets of places all over the place, that probably could be studied by churches, as like a more authentic expression of, what Paul or Jesus or Matthew, are trying to show, but are not overtly Christian, and some of the people involved with them are not Christian at all. Some of the people of them aren't. I think about I think about like Cooperation Jackson in Jackson, Mississippi, which is like a small, a small group of people that, that have their own farms, try to grow their own food, try to provide water for people, in the midst of, try to run a mayor for the city of Jackson.
I remember that. Yeah.
Like all these different things that and have a plan, have a legit aspirational goal for what their community might look like, and how that might spread, throughout the rest of the South, and then maybe other places, and I think that's the vision that's here. There's an evangelistic vision here, but it's not colonial, it's not domination. It's something,
it's liberation.
Right.
Liberation.
Yeah.
It was an alternative vision to empire. Right? Alternative to empire. Way of embracing life fully and authentically.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Wow.
Little one-liners get you going.
Yeah.
So you still in Romans?
Well, I did Romans. I did Romans the last 2 weeks. I'm off this Sunday, so
good.
The person who's filling in for me is doing the last part of Romans 8.
The biggie.
Yeah. Well, I did a poor job of talking about the the middle section of Romans 8 there, like the groaning of creation, and your one chance to really lay it out there. So, oh well.
Yeah.
3 more years, it'll come back around again.
I love that you said that to me.
It doesn't come out for another 3 years.
Yeah. A, B, C. A is Matthew, B is Mark, C is
how
Luke.
that works. So every year the A, B, C, they all rotate. That's how it works.
Yeah. Well, A is Matthew, B is Mark, C is Luke, and then John is kind of all throughout each of the years. So so it'll be there again. Yeah. So I remember that when I was at Fairfield with Darren, I was like, I don't know that I'm doing this any good. And he's like, well, 3 years later, you can do it again. You can preach it again.
I don't.
Yeah. I mean, that's if you're staying with the God. I mean, I find that I like to do some of the Old Testament stuff. I think I'm preaching on the 13th of August, and I can't even remember what the Matthew text is, but I'm preaching on Elijah in the cave. It's because I love that story, and I'm,
I think the Romans 8 comes up again on Trinity Sunday in year B.
Oh, okay.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's Pentecost in year C. So you do get a couple more opportunities to do the groaning of creation. But
Can I ask y'all a question or something? I mean, you can do this offline or online or offline, however you want. It's about this. It's about this. This Barbie movie.
I haven't seen it.
yeah, I haven't seen it.
I asked
Yeah.
Anita. I asked Anita. She just says text me. And I guess she's on kind of feels the way I feel a little bit. But
Who's that?
Yeah. Danita?
I asked Anita.
What did she say?
Because I have issues. I have issues with the imagery.
Right.
All the pink. All the pink.
Yeah. Well, not just the pink. Is the main. Well, we talk about from our communities the issues of colorism, and the main. I know Barbie's always been white, but as I look at the commercials, I didn't see a lot of color in the movie. I got an issue with that.
I think, but what I think though is that there's several. The only one we see is Margot Robbie. That's the one. She's the one in all the ads. But I think Issa Rae. I think Issa Rae is in it as well, and I think they're different. I think she plays a different version of Barbie. So she is in the movie. Issa Rae is, and there's like a whole.
You think there's more color than what I see in the commercial?
Oh yeah, well Issa Rae's in it. Yeah, she's been on, because now they're not able to promote. They had to stop promoting it when the strike started. But she had been on some of the panels talking about the movie. Okay. Well, people are saying that it's a feminist polemic. It's it's really? Woke, anti-male. So one woman said, "Oh God, I wasn't going to see it, but when I heard that the right is angry about it, I'm going tomorrow." So apparently it's a feminist, polemic about them. Yeah. So. Okay. Yeah. But
I would just. I mean, I'm all for different representation, but sometimes it's best to be left out of crappy stuff. Like, because then you can just be like, "Oh, that's some white people stuff." Yeah, in it, I'm not going to have to worry.
I mean, the woman that did it is the same woman that she adapted Little Women, and they said she turned that, and people have a vision of Little Women, and that was also, they said, under her direction, it was just like feminist crap.
I guess the question, the truth will come out when you figure out what they did with all the money they grossed.
Exactly.
Is it going to domestic violence? Is it going to where is it going?
It's a lot of money. It was a lot
of
money.
It's a lot of money.
Ain't no feminist polemic if all the money's just going to enrich one woman.
That's right. And then in Oppenheimer, people are upset because they said there's no discussion at all. It's really about his struggle, but no representation of Japanese families and how nothing, no discussion
about
right, or Mexican, exactly,
about their side of the atomic experience. Okay.
Well, yeah, but even here, how people were killed here in displaced because of what they were doing. So yeah, Mexico and here and in Japan, no discussion. It's all about this white man's struggle with the bomb and all that stuff. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah. I'm just waiting on Ninja Turtles. That's what I'm gonna do.
Right.
That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. But anyway.
So what's next week?
Feeding the 5,000, I think.
Oh, really?
Is that right? I think so. I just looked it up.
I really don't know because I think.
Let me go to it. I just had it up. Feeding, is it the 5,000? I think so.
I would think I was supposed to be off then too, but I.
Oh, you are. Oh, okay.
I have, but
let's see. August 6th. Do you know that you can, Mark? Do you ever? There's a whole website for the lectionary. It's run out of. It's run out of Vanderbilt University. Yeah, Vanderbilt. Okay. So if you just put in lectionary, it'll come up and you'll see the whole thing.
Okay.
It gives you year by year, and so the scripture ahead of time.
How do I know what year is A, what year is B, what year is C?
We're in A. We're in A. It changes at Advent, which is like usually the last Sunday in November. It'll switch over to B to Mark. and then we'll do Mark, and same thing the next. In our liturgical calendar, the year starts at Advent.
So
Okay.
what all you need to remember is that this is the third year that we've been doing this. So we started with Mark, and then we did Luke, and now we're doing Matthew.
So
Okay.
we go back.
So,
We go
and,
back.
you know,
So
in
we go back
December,
to go back to Mark. We go back to Mark come Advent.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. That's cool.
It is. I'm trying to.
Yeah. So
Oh.
it's the yeah.
So you said the feeding of the 5,000 next week.
Mm-hmm. That's the August 6th text. Yes.
Matthew has a brief version of it, though.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and you know, sometime I've been reading this book for I don't think I brought it downstairs with me, but I've been reading this book for to prepare to do these 2 texts in Romans.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty good, you know.
What's the book?
It's called, oh man,
We should do book. Do we want to? Are we going to do this another year, another 3 years, or do we want to do book or what? What do y'all think?
well, that's
You mean
yeah.
change
I
the
guess
format?
I guess I was getting close to hinting it. So,
Okay.
you know, I wish I could show. I'm trying to see if I can show this cover without it just being a small little. All right. Okay. See how good I am at this stuff. That's probably not the best. Okay. Yeah. So the name of the it's called Roman Disarm: Resisting Empire, Demanding Justice.
Woo!
Oh, okay.
Where do you get these titles, guys?
Yeah.
Well, so Sylvia, so I don't Sylvia Kismat and Brian Walsh are actually a couple. They live in Canada, and they are did it go? It's still on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so they live in Canada, and she's a professor at maybe McGill or some, you know, one of those some seminary up there, some place up there, and he teaches a little bit as well. But they wrote a commentary on Colossians, which is good.
Yeah, that's right. You did that one. Yeah.
And then she has some interesting things. Yeah, they both have some other interesting projects that they do, but yeah, it's really good, and it does a whole chapter on the whole you know, homosexuality thing in Romans, you know, at the end, which I think is, you know, worth talking about.
Yeah.
But and then they do an interesting job of tying in kind of the themes, you know, kind of some recent themes in Canada as well about you know, reconciliation, reparations for, you know, First Nations, and that sort of thing. So I don't know, it's interesting, you know. I know at the end, I know right at Advent, there's a whole, like right in January, there's a whole, all of the texts are from are from Mark 1. It's like all Mark 1. It's like, you know, there's like 7 weeks, you know, of Mark chapter 1. But yeah, I don't know. It would, of course, there's a lot of good books out there, but that one is.
I have to add that on the list. I found it in Amazon. Add that to the list.
Yeah, I think I think it's to me it's like I don't know. It's a very interesting it's an interesting way to think about not only Romans, but obviously like Romans is supposed to kind of lay out a whole, you know, theology for Paul.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for the New Testament then for many people. So, you know, reshaping that in a way.
Would you think, is it like Binding the Straw Man?
It's
in terms of the
well, they, you know, they're big Ched Myers fans. and they work with him. They work with him fairly closely. The one thing I like about their text too is they do. I mean, I like it and I don't like it sometimes, but in general, it makes it easy to read. Is that they have they always put this kind of like a dialogue partner in the midst of their chapters. So you know they'll go around saying something, and then this little thing will come in italics, like, "Hold on a minute," like you like you keep saying this, and I'm used to this kind of understanding of it. So tell me why you're saying it this way. You know, like, why are you translating righteousness, justice? Like, you know, I hear what you're trying to do, but what makes you think you can do that? You know, like, so they'll say that. You know, then they'll explain that, and then then the person will come back and say, well, what about blah blah blah. And
wow.
You know, and then they also have these kind of like what do they call them? They call them targums, or midrashes, kind of on. And so they do these long translations of the text where they weave in kind of contemporary things. I think they do a really good job of of that sort of thing. So that might be worthwhile to. And I know next year for me as well. Like I've picked out some Old Testament texts and some of the epistles as well. Like besides the gospel text. So it might be worth just doing
some different things
for a minute. And
are you going to use what's the group again for Advent? Are you going to use them again?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Have they put it out yet?
Yeah. Well, they put out the like the teaser.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The full thing comes out in August.
Okay.
What
Okay.
group is this?
What is it? Yeah. Sanctified Art. Yeah.
And their the theme this year is it's something in a weary world.
Oh, okay.
Finding hope in a weary world or something like that. I just was looking at it today, and I totally forgot the.
One of the creative team lives in Richmond, Mark. That's how
Oh, how does a weary world rejoice is the name of the name of the kind of theme this year. So,
okay.
Yeah. So maybe we could. I mean, you know how I am.
Yeah.
By the time January rolls around, if I say that we should do this book in the new year, like I'll have changed. I'll have like 3 more books that I've written. But it might be fun to do a little bit of it at a time. Maybe take a few weeks.
And see, they're off script. They're doing.
They don't care.
They're doing Luke.
They don't care anymore.
They don't. They were really following lectionary, but I guess last year they broke out with the Lenten thing that wasn't tracking, and now this Advent is Luke's gospel. So yeah.
I don't blame them.
Who said this Advent this Advent was Mark's gospel?
It is, but they're doing Luke. So I mean that's the thing. You can
Okay.
I mean, traditionally you're going to do Mark all of next year, but now they're doing for Advent. They're doing Luke.
Right.
So,
well, of course, like sometimes at Advent you jump into John here and there. You kind of any course, like for Epiphany you have to do Matthew because they don't have the wise men story and anybody else.
Right.
So you do get kind of back and forth, but they've kind of given up on the. Actually, I was looking at it today, and I think for the baptism of the Lord in January, I'm gonna do the Luke and the Mark reading.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Have it be like a one of them can take the place of the Old Testament text.
Have you ever done the narrative lectionary?
No, I haven't. I've seen, I know people who have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good seeing you guys.
Seeing you, good seeing everybody. Stay cool. The heat's
coming. 110. I think 110 on Friday. 110.
Woo.
All I just say is at least we're not Houston, but that's
Well, That's
but we
dry.
could very easily be there. So
That's dry heat, though.
that's dry.
Yeah.
Well, it's at night. What is it? 90. It's still 90 degrees overnight.
95, 96 at night.
Overnight, it's still 90. So
So
that's
your body still doesn't get a chance to.
no, your body doesn't get a chance to cool. So, and your AC is just going. So,
Right.
Yeah.
God bless the AC.
If you got it, that's the problem.
Right.
A lot of people don't have it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys
All
have
right,
a
y'all.
great week.
See y'all.
All right. See y'all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.